doing. Sorry about that. I'm going to turn this puppy up. There we go. And let's do this.
When Zarathustra turned 30 years old, he left his home and the lake beside his home to go into the mountains. There he enjoyed his spirit and his solitude, and for 10 years he did not weary of it. But at last his heart changed, and rising one morning with the rosy dawn, he said to the sun, "O great star, what would your happiness be if you had nobody to shine for? For 10 long years you have climbed up to my cave, and every morning I have been waiting for you here with my serpent and my eagle. And we basked in your glory, and took from you your overflowing power. And we blessed you for this. But now I am weary of my wisdom. I am a bee that has gathered too much honey and needs hands outstretched to take it. I must shine like you, until the wise speak in tongues, and the poor count their blessings. I must go down into the deep, like I was you, the sun, diving underneath the sea, giving light to the netherworld, shining with unmatched happiness, high in the sky where you can witness the greatest happiness without a shred of envy. You have filled me with your happiness. It is time I emptied myself. It is time Zarathustra became a man." So what you just saw there is a reaction video to an upcoming animated version of Thus Spoke Zarathustra's prologue being made by BOYO Labs. So that should be coming along any day now. But for the time being, I'm going to talk to you about big ideas and what Zarathustra really means. Let's get into this, my friends. So Nietzsche's explicit project was to reevaluate all values. So what exactly does that mean? Well, if you want to understand, first you must know what values are. And you might be familiar with this by hearing people say Muslim values, Christian values, Western values, my values, all of that type of stuff. Now, this is quite abstract, and I like to make this stuff practical. So think about how values are important in your life. People might even say that this is pointless, this is abstract philosophy and it's not practical at all, but values are the most practical thing you could possibly have. Think, for example, of how values could turn you into a billionaire if you align with them properly. How come the richest man in the world is the richest man in the world? Or he was, anyway. I think he lost that recently. This is Elon Musk. Elon Musk was the richest man in the world because he was building Tesla. Tesla is this thing that doesn't make any profit. It doesn't even work yet. It's this idea, it's this hope, it's this dream that we could create this company that produces electric cars all around the world. And people threw money at this idea at Tesla because they value the idea of this working. Because of the big idea inherent within it, capital and cash and energy flowed towards it and empowered it to make that idea manifest. So what you see happening here is Elon Musk shows up and he can prove that he's a very competent man, first of all. And he puts out a sort of thesis and a white paper and like a sort of promise that this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to build this giant factory, and in this factory we're going to build cars that are fully electric, fully sustainable, and it's going to solve this problem that we're all hearing about all the time, which is the environment's going to get destroyed by fossil fuels. So what we have here is Musk showing up and saying, this, in our culture, we have this goal, this crusade that we're a part of, and we value the environment, we value overcoming this goal, and we value defeating this crusade. This is our religion of the West, and this is the climate change hope that everybody wants to see solved and everybody's banging on about all the time, or certain people are banging on about all the time. And so Musk comes along and he aligns with that and he makes a promise, and everybody starts throwing cash at him. They're like, I want to see this work out. I want to see this transform. I want to see this fixed. And what people will do is they'll invest in it, first of all, with the self-interest that they believe that this is important, and if it works out it will create more value, so they'll get rich on the other hand. But they're also willing to take that risk because they believe in it. They really, really believe in the cause. This is what you hear people say, stuff like, you'll work harder if you believe in what you're doing. This is where you should try to find something that you believe, because you'll go beyond the normal if you actually care on that existential and fundamental level, if it speaks to your religious and dreaming mind inside of your head. And so all this money starts to flow into Tesla, and it becomes one of the biggest companies in the world, and as a consequence its leader, Elon Musk, becomes one of the richest men in the world. And from him aligning with the right values, the values of the Western world, he becomes superpowered. He does extremely well for himself. And there's lots of different examples of this. You see this stuff everywhere, and this is where you start to understand how amazing the top of the world is, like where all the big capital is sloshing around. Actually, an awful lot of it looks like energy and money and focus and attention getting passed towards big dreams. Cryptocurrency is another one, for example, full of scams, of course. But how did that do so well? How did it build up that type of momentum? Well, it starts off with a guy called Satoshi. Think about what happened here. And Satoshi is sitting there, and the government is asking him to do all this stuff he doesn't want to do, like pay his taxes, I'm sure. And he turns around and he says, do you know what, screw this. I'm going to build this type of money. I'm going to build a blockchain, which is going to be this sort of accounting and organizational system that is distributed and not centralized in banks, and therefore is going to be anti-fragile against people trying to steal my wealth and be annoying and all these type of things. And this idea works. You know, he builds Bitcoin and he sets it off after the 2008 financial crash, where everybody realizes that the bankers are all scammers and they've been conducting usury on us, and you know, the uneducated plebs just got fleeced because they're all offered like houses on debt-based finance and all this type of stuff. And he knows all this going on, and so he says, right, I'm going to build some Bitcoin. And he releases Bitcoin, I think it was 2009, was it? And it starts to move forward, and people start to hear about it. Anton Antonopoulos, who's a Greek guy, he hears about Bitcoin and he says, oh my God, like the Greek government got destroyed financially because the bankers in Greece fleeced them, basically. The people were, for example, walking down the streets, and I think they were trying to take money out of their accounts, and the Greek government was basically saying, look, we've confiscated some of your cash from your account because we need it to stabilize the environment and bail out these banks and stuff like this. And people were like, what? Are you serious? The usurers, the government is bailing out the usurers. What is going on here? I feel like I live in medieval Christianity or something like this. And so Vitalik, I've just given away what I'm about to talk about. God damn it. You have Anton Antonopoulos. You can look him up on YouTube. He gets into Bitcoin. He finds it to be a big idea, and he starts talking about it early. And he becomes incredibly wealthy as a consequence of this, because he gets in early, he believes in it, he invests in it, he goes around the world talking about it all the time. He starts to collect a couple of Bitcoin, and you know, he collects maybe 1,000 Bitcoin or something like this. And at that point, how much is that worth? That's worth a lot at this point, you know? And so he goes and he does this, and he becomes hyper successful as a consequence. Now, what you see is him again investing in these values, him becoming successful. Satoshi, if he's actually still alive, or if he was killed or whatever, or he died or whatever happened with him, like, he's a multi-billionaire as a consequence of Bitcoin. There's many people who invested in Bitcoin around about these early stages that became billionaires in the course of it was only 10 years, you know, that was 14 years ago, 13 years ago when this all kicked off. And all these people are now incredible levels of wealth completely. They literally just zoomed to the top of the world because they invested in the right idea, because so many people value this idea of having some type of answer to the problem of the market of the beast system. You know, the fact that we have this giant organized financial system that is unaccountable in some sense, is able to print money, is able to cause things like inflation, is in cahoots with the government, as people would say. It can shut off your banks, as happened to Iman Ghatzi and Andrew Tate. You can see people, if they dissent culturally and talk about things that, talk about values that go against the current value system, they will get whooshed out of society. And what you see is that level of power, that ability to shut people off from the mark of the beast system, the system, you know, the matrix, as Andrew keeps on calling it, this is bad. And so people want an answer to this. And so Satoshi actually saw that so early that he actually built one, and it works out. And he technically could be a billionaire if he's still alive, but many other people involved in it became very, very wealthy. Vitalik Buterin creates a version of this Ethereum based off the same principle and the same value. And Ethereum is so fascinating, because Ethereum is in some sense like, you know, maybe a new world order technology for all we know. I don't know, maybe it involves all that stuff. But at the same time, Vitalik is very ideological. Like, he's very idealistic, I should say. He's a very young dude, and he's about my age. Oh my God, he's so rich compared to me, like, fucking hell. He's about my age, and he comes in and he goes in and he believes in these big ideas. He believes in these values, these gods. And these values are decentralization and environmentally neutral. You know, Bitcoin is like uses electricity. I'm not going to get into this too much, but he goes in and he's like, all right, we want something that is proof of stake, because then it won't be fucking up the environment with electricity costs. We want something that is decentralized completely, and we want something that is secure, so we can actually operate as this infrastructure for the new internet world and the new and the way the world is going, where we can exchange value across the internet. It's such a fascinating idea. So much foresight into it, and he invests very heavily into it. And if you know anybody involved with ETH, Ethereum has this kind of aura about it where all the talent goes to Ethereum because the ideas are the biggest. And Ethereum doesn't fucking work. You know, you use Ethereum now and it's going to cost you like, maybe not anymore since all the crashes, but it costs you like, you know, $100 to send something across. It doesn't function. It's not working. It's like with Tesla. Tesla was not profitable. I'm not even sure if it's profitable yet. And the cars are kind of like, yeah, whatever. They just, you know, go 20 miles and then you have to get out and like stick a Duracell battery in them or something like this, or burn coal on the side of the road and harvest all the energy and stick it in yourself. You know, warm the car up with your hot hands from the fire or something like this. But Ethereum is very, very similar. Like if you go to Ethereum, and what you see in Ethereum is this extremism, this absolutism. It's like, you know, they're like Islamic prophets coming in and saying like all in absolutism. We believe in decentralization. We believe in sustainability, and they build this tech designed to do that. And all the talented devs, all the super high IQ, super skilled people from all around the world hoover up and move towards this project. They're like, I want to build this. I want to build this structure, build this institution. Now, this is a fascinating thing to wrap your head around, because it's actually inspires you to an awful lot of hope. Because one of the most crushing things I'll notice about life, or you'll notice about life, is the pettiness and the mundaneness of it. You know, oh, you have to go out and get some shitty job or go participate in, you know, the mundane, crappy reality and all this. And people, you'll often find quite a lot of people, especially if you're creative like me, who are trying to like dampen your spirits, you know, trying to kick you in the butt a little bit and say, like, look, life is not like that. You know, your kind of parents talking to you. Life is not like that. Life is hard. You have to compromise in your dreams. What you hope will happen will not happen. Realistically, you know, everything's going to fail. Everything's going to fuck up. And of course, that's very true. I talk about this in the shadow side of being a creative, an idealistic person, is you have to actually integrate the realities of the world and understand that most 80% of your big ideas, 90%, 95% of your big ideas are just not going to happen, because life is not like that. Human reality is not like that. Nature is going to crush you. You know, she's designed to crush you. Entropy is the all-encompassing super demon that's going to annihilate everything. So the big ideas winning is just something else. It's very, very rare to see something like this happen. But on the flip side, that 5%, that 1% of those big ideas, when they work, they fucking work. And they can take you to levels that are incomprehensible. This is why you see most of the middle managers are the realists. You know, most of the people making, you know, 40k all the way up to maybe like 10 million or something like that, they're all the realists. They're all the kind of down to earth cynical people who are telling you how the world works and kind of punching you in the stomach and saying, listen, don't get your head up, just stay with the operations and don't overthink things. And then all the broke people are idealists, and all the billionaires are idealists. All the multimillionaire and billionaires are idealists, because it's that type of distribution. There's the creators, the forward thinkers, the people who push things forward and get the incredible rewards of society are like this. And it all comes down to these big ideas. I want to give you another example. I could rant about this all day. God damn, I hope you strap yourself in. I'm fucked off my tits on matcha tea. I'm actually in the middle of a fast right now, so I haven't eaten in a long time. I'm going to do a 36-hour fast, and then I'm going to break it with Christmas dinner. So if you want to join me in that, well, I'm going to break it with some bone broth and then Christmas dinner. If you want to join me with that, starve yourself a little bit before Christmas dinner, fast and all that. This is quite good. It's very, very good for the body, good for the gut, good for the mind, good for the challenge the mind. You know, let's get all this type of stuff in. Talk about values, talk about religion. The Muslims have Ramadan, the Christians have Lent. You know, we in the West, we don't do stuff like this anymore because we're soy boys. Well, let's change that. Let's go back to our old Christian roots. Let's go back and admire the Muslim strength of mind to be able to do Ramadan every year. Let's do it ourselves. Let's do a fast. I've already started this. This is 36 hours. Maybe you won't do it as long, but maybe you could do 48 hours, 2 days. Maybe you could do 24 hours or something like this. Build that resilience inside yourself. Look how much energy I have. I haven't eaten in so long. You walk around and you're like a little last man. That's what you are. You're a little bug man, little fat cell walking around saying to yourself, oh, I have to eat. Oh, I need the food. Oh, I need the food inside my body. I don't need food. I have matcha tea. I'm absolutely fucked on this stuff. It's actually so goddamn good. I think it's all the L-theanine and caffeine inside of it. I'm not even doing coffee because coffee's too hard in your belly, and I'm going to prove to myself that I'm hard, that I'm able to push through it. I'll probably fall asleep by the end of this rant if I'm not careful, so I better get to the point. And by the way, if you're going to do this, I do recommend you try it. Electrolytes. Get some electrolytes in. I'm drinking coconut water, technically not a dry fast, not a proper fast. There's like a little bit of calories in it. Electrolytes, lemon and salt. You could have green tea. I'm doing some collagen peptides too, because I'm really trying to help my belly here. I'm not trying to go too crazy with, just not a single calorie inside my body. So you can try what you're doing, get all that stuff sorted out, join me in the rejoicing fast, feel the euphoria that you feel when you realize that you are above nature. You can conquer nature. You are a piece of life, a piece of nature. Your body's biological operations and systems flow throughout you all the time, trying to create you all the time. And we have this sort of desperate anxiety where we're tethered to the world. We've got all these middle managers living inside of our bodies who are trying to be realists and pulling us down and saying, you need calories, you need glucose, you need this insulin spikes, you need food inside of yourself. You must be brought down into the realm of the physical. You must be brought down into the operations of biology, the unconscious operations of nature, to just struggle aimlessly after mere life. But instead, what you see in the religions, the grand civilizing religions of Christianity, of Islam, what you see in this power of something like fasting is you get to establish order within your body. You get to turn to your body and say, you are inferior to me. Me and you are a team, but I am the leader. I am the one who decides what happens. I am the one who is master in this house, and you will not get any of your biological processes for the next 36 hours, and you will endure this and come out on the other side stronger because of me. So this is the opportunity that you have. Anyway, I want to give you another example of how powerful these values are when you align with them, that they can manifest and transform and change the world and change your life. Like, these things do work at times. One of the most incredible stories and institutions in the entire world is the Catholic Church. I guess I have to say this coming up to the Christmas. We have to pay respects to this ancient institution, the most prestigious institution of all, the largest social media account with the most followers. It's like, I think there's 2 billion people follow just the Catholic Church around the world. It's the big C, I guess is what you could call it. People, it's so big that all the Protestants in Iceland and Germany and England and America and all the Scandis, they're all like, I'm scared of the Catholic Church. This Catholic Church is Satanists and all this type of stuff. It's like, be mad. I bet you're so mad that we've got this big badass fancy church. You losers walking around in your, like, I don't know, your fake made up religion. Look at us now, flexing with all our angels and all our demons. Look, we don't even need to read the book. We just make it up because we're the children of God. We're the true Israelites, and the power comes down in our bodies, and we articulate how the world works. You just have to go and be like, I need to read the book properly. You're a bookseller. You're a book coper. Doesn't it show you what Protestantism is? We don't even read the book. We just get some dude to tell us. We don't even fucking listen. We're like talking Latin, man. I'm not listening anyway. Just talking whatever you want, and we just go and we flex. We hang out. We're cool. We get to like look all cool. We have all this gold hanging around us. We've got all these like badass rituals that were probably just pagan Roman rituals that have this grafted onto it. And you're just running around being like, oh, but the truth, what it actually says. It's like, what am I, a nerd? Do I look like a nerd? I'm not interested in your Protestant nonsense. Get out of here. We are doing it our way. Oh, look, I've lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah, right. Here we go. So what I was saying about the Catholic Church is the same idea. Like, you look at something like Ethereum, and you have all the talent from all across the world, harvested from all across the world. The best developers on earth get hoovered up into this project, and they get drawn to it like mosquitoes to a light. They get drawn to this amazing operation and project, and everybody's like, I want to be a part of this. And Vitalik in there as well, and they all join into it, and it was about achieving these values. It's like this little religious experience, this little religious project. Christianity was so similar. You have Jesus show up, and you have like 12 blokes. They're like the original Ethereum founders, and they're saying, you know what? Let's look at the Son of God here, and like talk about how we could actually formalize everything that went on and fulfill his message and all this stuff. And so he goes and they go and they start to spread the gospel. They spread the good news. The Messiah has come. Judea is like, fuck them. Rome, fuck them. Fuck everybody. We've got to sort it out. We're here to change the fucking world. Year zero starts with us. And this is legitimately mind blowing because that's actually true. You know, they went into Rome. They penetrated into Rome's consciousness and transformed the entire mythological structure of Rome and installed themselves in there as the pinnacle and rose Christ, a slave, up to the pinnacle, the king of Rome, the king of all kings. It's like, oh my God. And they built out of that an institution, a church. They built out of this, you know, it was like the Ethereum Foundation. They built this sort of structure and system. They took this architecture of all these churches all around Europe, and they all led back to Rome, of course, and they built, and it was like they were creating this brain, this nervous system over Europe. And then these blokes, these 12 apostles who were around the one Christ, ended up creating this system that took over the largest empire in the world. This little, you know, just way of doing things that took over the largest empire in the world. And then this empire spread out all across Europe like a nervous system, harvesting all the peoples of Europe together into one body, creating Christendom, and then stabilizing this as a set of practices until the fucking Protestants come along, a set of practices and a way of seeing the world and a sort of shared cultural ethos for 1,000 years, which blossoms in the Renaissance. And then a German incel shows up called Martin Luther, and he's like, I don't understand this. I don't understand style. I don't understand looking good and fancy. I don't understand any of this stuff. I don't understand, why aren't we reading the book? It's like, because we have fucking lives, man. We have things to do. Touch grass. It's like, no, I want to stay and read the book myself. Fucking losers. So this is what happens, and what you see now is the Catholic Church is still here. So you had Jesus, like the ultimate idealist, you know, walking in and being like, you know, just all up in the air, completely like walking in and saying the big ideas. And there's all these people around him, these Pharisees around him being like, you can't say that. You can't talk about big ideas. You can't imagine you're just the fucking son of God or some shit, you fucking dork. Shut up. We've got serious realities around here. We're trying to lead a revolution against these Romans. We're trying to figure all this stuff out. You can't shut your mouth. Be quiet. And they kill him because he's representing the wrong ideas. He's a blasphemer, a heretic, somebody who's challenging the values of his people. And so they kill him. But the values are so strong, and the operational institution is so strong, and it draws so many people in there that it wins in the end. And it builds this infrastructure that lasts till this day, which is the Catholic Church. It's still here. It's still here. You go into the Catholic Church and you're seeing operations. You're seeing behaviors that people did in the catacombs of Rome 2,000 fucking years ago. Like, there's nothing quite like that. That is so ancient. That is so amazing to see stuff like this, you know? I think the only thing close would be something like Christmas, which is probably some Indo-European tradition that goes back 7,000 years or something like this, you know? This is like, we've been doing this for so long. And there's depth to see these big ideas, these big values, these values transform into operations is so fascinating. So we want you to understand this story. In the West, now, let's put all the past behind us. For one step, just move on to the current age, right? So in the West now, what is the religion? What is the values that are operating? What is going on? Well, we live in a sort of Promethean age is the way you could understand it. And the values that we have, the religion that we have, is very geared towards the progress we can make towards the future using technology. This is what we always think about in this world. And how could I articulate this? Well, think of the concept of climate change. Like, if you go up into the startup world, this is how this type of stuff works. You show up into the startup world and you say to all the boys, you know, you're sort of saying, all right, look, I'm going to build this like sock that is like 20% less fiber, that is unsustainable, and it's going to be made of like, you know, fiber that I just pulled out of my own mattress, and we're going to make this a scale. People be like, $4 million, here you go. You go up and you say, I'm going to make this cryptocurrency, and it's going to like end progressive, and it's going to end racism, it's going to end misogyny. Like, you know, it's this cryptocurrency that's decentralizing hate so that it loses its power, and then we're going to rug pull hate, and then all of a sudden you're like $10 million, $100 million, it's just to the moon, these type of things. If you look at what is going on in the West, we have these values, and people are willing to throw money at them to see them manifest. At the top levels of the game, people buy into things based on the values. So if you know the values of the society, you can almost position yourself to take advantage of this type of stuff and actually enjoy building really, really cool things. The way financing and money works is so fascinating, because money is not to be understood as the kind of petty cash that we struggle with in our peasant days-to-day lives, but instead it's you have to understand it as like energy. at the top of the game, like, money's not really real, you know. When it comes to investments and all this type of stuff, you're not really dealing with like cash in the way that we understand it. Instead, what you're dealing with is you've got these people who have these large amounts of capital, which would be basically like a big load of energy. It's like you're inside a body and it's this big store of fat or glucose or something like this. Energy, lightning, electricity. And if an idea shows up, you, the owner of the energy, the person who has all the money, can throw the energy at the idea. And if the idea works, it makes more energy. It's successful. It's a functioning system, an anti-entropic system that will generate more energy out of it, and then you'll get more energy in return. You get more wealth in return, get more cash in return. And this is sort of what you see at the top ends of society in all sorts of ways. If you go into the film industry, it's the same thing. There's all these scripts floating around, and then you go and you decide, I want to invest in this script, and the movie studio invests in the script, puts $10 million down, and then they go and they run the script into the distribution centers, and if the movie is watched by a lot of people, they might get 100 million back. They've made 10x return. But if they put the energy in the wrong place, then the money will dissipate, and then they'll go broke, and then they lose $10 million because it was a stupid film where they're trying to diversity cast instead of actually making a good film, which you see happening actually an awful lot now, which is very fascinating. We're going to get into that. Their values are wrong. They drive them in the wrong direction, and they end up actually going broke as a consequence. So money is like energy moving around a system, and these people are like little cells, and so if you can come up with the right idea, all this energy will flow towards you. This is what's happening at the top, happening in Silicon Valley. This is what it was like when Facebook and all that stuff was being made. It's like a brain nearly, you know. You've got this idea that pops up, and then the brain either inhibits the idea and ignores it, or it pays attention to it and fills it full of energy and allows it to blossom. This is what meditation teaches you when you do it. So what you see is the idea of like Facebook show up or Twitter show up back in the days in those early Silicon Valley rounds, or Airbnb. And not, like all these examples, you can look into this and see what happens. Airbnb is basically wasn't profitable. Many of these like scooter applications, they weren't making any money. They're not functioning businesses. They're not generating any wealth. So what was happening? All these venture capitalists, all these people with cash, all the big capital, all the energy, all these cells with this energy in this body politic of society, hear about this idea of like, imagine if you could just rent out your room to some dork and then charge him a fuckload of cash for it and then annoy him when he doesn't clean or something like this. Imagine you could try subvert hotels by, you know, going and Airbnb out somebody else's apartment and Airbnb in your own apartment and trying to do all this. And imagine if we could make these scooters that drive around cities and all this type of stuff and, you know, screw people over and make them trip up and annoy normal pedestrians and stuff like this. Imagine if we could make social media so that we can censor and castrate the spiritual and creative potential of the next generation by getting them all dopamine addicted to nonsense and then promoting crazy shit on top of it as well, while stopping them from having their own opinions. Imagine if we do all this stuff and everybody's like, yeah, let's invest in this. And the money flows towards these things. And many of these companies are just not profitable in Silicon Valley, but there's so much capital in them that they work. Uber is a great example. Uber was basically cheaper than taxis for a long time. Uber was doing really, really well because there's so much cash in Uber, because people believed that, you know, crowdsourcing, economies at scale were going to be cheaper and they're going to make taxis obsolete. This is this idea of we're the new society with these new values, and tech can solve all the problems. This is what's going to happen. We're the idealists, you know, tech is going to figure out these insufficiencies and move us forward. And so all this money goes into Uber, and then Uber, of course, is cheaper. So if you're using, you know, your phone, you're using Uber, it's cheaper, and then eventually it stops being cheaper. And then because all the VC money runs out and it's not turning a profit anymore. And so what happens is the thing collapses, and you see that the whole thing was just held up by the fact that so many people with a lot of money believed in the big idea. Now, this is key to understand, because then you can look at the West as it is and see that you've got the climate change question. You've got this idea of technology is going to save us. You've got this idea of progressivism. Like, an awful lot of it is wrapped around technology is going to take us forward. We're very much like a Promethean technological people. This is our values. You don't really see that, you know, in maybe Islamic countries or in China so much. Maybe more recently, but not back in the day, this type of stuff. Ireland's a good example. After Ireland became free and after World War II, Ireland became very anti-technological. It was like the Ted Kaczynski land. And Ireland, why our president wanted to be very agrarian. That was the value. We wanted to stay, you know, humble, grass-fed, eating people and all this type of stuff. And so Ireland was like a little bit backwards and all this type of stuff. And it was pretty much what it has always been, just a little bit behind the times and all this. And then recently, Silicon Valley moved into Ireland because of corporate tax things. And Ireland is just now, rapidly advanced in terms of technology. We're one of the wealthiest people in the world. And it's all because of these, you see all this stuff happening. And as a consequence of this, all these funny things have started to show up in Ireland. There's problems with like houses. You're seeing all this modern tech. We're becoming an awful lot more like tech obsessed as a consequence, because this is how the game works. This is what goes on here. We're moving into these new set of values, really catching up with the kind of West as a whole. Now, this is very important to understand, because then you sit down and you say to yourself, right, well, what's happening in our world? Well, you look at Elon Musk, and he's literally like the poster child for Western values. The richest man in the world, coincidentally, is the poster child for sort of modern millennial Reddit Western values. And it's all about technological futurism. That's what all of this stuff is. What does he have initially? PayPal, which is actually sort of like an attempt to do something like Bitcoin, to create an internet of money, or a money for the internet. So that's PayPal. He does that and does quite well off this. Then he moves on to SpaceX. Same thing. This idea where he's going for the biggest idea possible. He goes all into the big idea. And this motivates, it draws loads of energy. It draws all the best talent in the world, the best engineers, to build spaceships that go up into the sky and then can land again. So they're like cost efficient. So we can get to Mars, which he says is because of the existential idea that we want to make sure that humanity is safe in case like a disaster happens on Earth. So we're becoming a 2-planet system. So it's the big dream, the big hope, the big crusade that motivates him to do what he needs to do. And you need to understand this, because this is like, wow, the big thinking actually fucking works. And when he sets up SpaceX, he's broke, he doesn't have any product, nothing works, none of that stuff is there, but people throw money at him because they believe. They believe in him, they believe in the plan, and they value what he's talking about. They want to see mankind make it to Mars. These big ideas we believe in. This tells you something about the human spirit. How have we got to the point where we were fucking running around there eating bananas and shit like this in the jungle? Why we were apes at once, and we're a bridge towards a higher destination. We can go very, very high. Our potential to overcome problems is astounding. We began as apes, not knowing what was outside the fucking forest, and now we have been to space. That is amazing. That is flabbergasting when you think about this type of stuff. The progress, the distance that we have come. We're stretched so far into the future, so high up into the world, into the possibilities of the world. We have such an incredible potential, because at the very highest level of the game, these big ideas do show us so much about what we are and what we're capable of, and they draw the best people towards them. All these engineers have now succeeded with SpaceX, and Elon now has rockets that go up and land again. It's fucking amazing looking at that shit. It's literally like seeing some type of science fiction, idea had just come to life in the last 10 years. Because I remember when he was doing all this type of stuff, and I didn't get it, but I'd see him banging on about SpaceX, and I'm like, whatever, like, I don't care. It's kind of cool, but Reddit was like, oh, I love it. And now look at him, he pulled it off. He's pulled it off. And now he has this rocket ship that lands down. I don't know, is it making any money? But it's kind of like, who gives a fuck? He's took man a step forward. He's taken a step forward, one small step for man. He's achieved this. And all that capital went in to manifest this dream, and now we have rocket ships that can land by themselves. Way. And then look at, as I said, Tesla, another great example. Because all the people in our society are like, oh, fuck the climate change. And this shows you big stories, big dreams. Like Jung says, we think in terms of dreams, big values. It's so important. So important. Because we all, in our Reddit consciousness for the millennial generation, all believed that the environment is going to get destroyed. It's the biggest problem of our time. I remember thinking this an awful lot as well. And I have my suspicions now, because I've seen people talk about making us eat bugs as a consequence of this. But you can even see them, the more shady people, suggesting that, all right, we should eat bugs so we can solve the big idea. They're attaching to the big idea, the big value. And I would propose that actually that value is correct. We should think about how we should harmonize with the earth, but we should acknowledge nature's hierarchy before we do that. That's the most important thing. You must align yourself with nature's profound wisdom that she has had before we ever existed, before you can go around and say, I'm going to force everybody on earth to eat bugs as a solution. But you still see that same thing, the big idea, the big dream, the big story. Because this stuff, I guess, is multifaceted. You have maybe the big idea, save the environment, which is attached to a story. As I've said before, we think in terms of stories. Narratives are everything. This story is that, all right, well, we're using all this fossil fuel because we've grown so fast and we're destroying the earth, filling the ocean full of plastic, correct? Pumping out carbon into the atmosphere. sort of correct, yeah. We're destroying the world with our industrial capacity and poisoning things. Like, I think an awful lot of this is true, especially the way we do industrialized farming, pumping chemicals and stuff like this into the water supply, using things like glyphosate. All this stuff is very, very dangerous, very, very bad, and ruining ecosystems. These types of things are genuinely real. There's a big story for us to get wrapped up in, and it's highly motivating because it's religious, it's existential, it's the biggest possibilities of all, the highest things that could possibly be. Back in Christian times, if you were a young European knight, like a young dude like myself, and you were this type of person, you would dream about something big. We all have this inside of us. We dream about the heights. Even if you're a warrior, maybe not so much as an artist or a scientist, but even if you're a warrior, you don't care. You want to fight in the great battle of your time. You are an idealist in that type of way. Every warrior wants to believe that they're going after something massive. Look at Andrew Tate. A lot of people will call him things like selfish, things like materialistic, and it's, maybe you could say he's definitely flexing those values. We'll talk about that maybe at a later point. But you can definitely see that man could have just sailed off into the sunset with all his girls and all his cars and all his cash, and he could have been absolutely fine. He would have done well for himself. But instead, you see that he did want to participate in a great battle for his age. He believes that the values in the West right now are wrong, and he wanted to fight a war against this. He believed this was the most important thing to him. And so he's put himself at risk, because you could say, oh, he did it for cash. It's like, every Western bank that he has basically shut down and froze his money, so he lost millions and millions of dollars when he got cancelled. People are hassling his parents, hassling his sister. People are calling up his ex-wives and stuff, his ex-girlfriends and stuff like this. It's not good to get under this type of pressure. Like, you can definitely make money and go off into the sunset and live a very pleasure-filled life without doing stuff like this. But he believed, he wanted to go for this, and so he took the risk, and he threw it all away. And he's very much like that warrior archetype. He wanted to fight in the great fight. He wanted to go for something like this, because at the end of the day, when he looks at his life and says to himself, who am I? What have I achieved? It's like, look, it'd be impressive if he was the great champion kickboxer and all this, and he'd made loads of cash and all this type of stuff. But I guess when it comes to the very, very end, the most manly thing you can do is put it all on the line for something massive. And you see this in the ancient Christian world. There's the same problem. People, all these knights, these European knights living in their German cities, these very super talented men, like Iron Men in their glistening steel armor. Incredibly talented fighters, athletic specimens, like the warrior caste of today, like all the personal trainers and athletes. Imagine if those fuckers were running around with swords, trained on horseback, covered in glittering armor, and they wanted to fight. Now, they could, of course, fight each other. They could flex. They could assert they're the bigger alpha dog in the local castle, who deserves to be in the local castle. But loads of them got obsessed about the idea of something massive, of hitting the biggest idea of all, which was to go and fight against the great enemy of Islam, to go down to the Middle East and go to Jerusalem and claim Jerusalem for the Lord. And so the priests in Rome would sit down and think of a way that they could spin, the kind of pacifist Christianity, and sort of suggest, we need to go and claim the Holy Land for Christ, because Christ really wanted Jerusalem, and here's all these passages that make this make sense. And so they'd give a way for this crusade to make sense, this story to make sense. They tell a story that, these Muslims, they're all Satanists, they're the Antichrist, they're coming to take Jerusalem off Christendom and all this type of stuff. And then what we need to do is we need to go down and fight against them and claim the Holy Land for ourselves, claim Jerusalem for ourselves. And this says to all these young men, says, you can go and you can risk your life. You could die in battle, certainly, but you'll be known forever as somebody who fought in the great battle of your era. It'd be like Lord of the Rings, Where were you when Gondor was invaded? Oh, I was in the front line. Oh, my brother Mick died there. It's like, wow. That's awesome. The poets tell the story. You were one of the central. You could be Aragorn. You could be those type of characters. Lord of the Rings, as the one I just said. Jesus, goddamn, fast brain. Star Wars, same type of thing. You could be Luke Skywalker. You could be part of the big story of the era. Oh, we went on a crusade. We all went to fight the Muslims, and you claimed, Joe was there, and he fought all these Muslims, and he broke down the gate, and he got into Jerusalem. Oh, Billy actually died, but he fought bravely when he died. He went against Saladin's troops, and he died in this incredible battle and all this type of stuff. And all the Muslims would be the exact same on the other side. They'd be hearing off their imams and stuff like that, and they'd be saying, you've got these fucking dork, weird, pale motherfuckers coming down saying that they own Jerusalem. And it's clearly like, we're the Muslims, we're the Arabs, we're the sons of Allah. We're like, it's ours. Like, what are they even fucking talking about, made up religion. You know, Christ is like, you know, what are they doing? Like, it's Muhammad and Allah. Well, like, what's going on? So anyway, we're gonna go fight these fucks off and get them sorted out. And the big dreams drive the warriors towards these incredible things. So what we have in the Promethean West, God, I'm on some tear of rants today. What we have in the Promethean West is belief in these big stories, these big crusades, save the environment, use technology in order to transform our lives. I was going through Elon Musk as an example, you know, so SpaceX, go to Mars with rocket ships, Tesla, electric cars to save the environment. What you now have is things like Neuralink, you know, connect yourself to the internet, the transhuman singularity. And like, I don't know, a lot of people are like, is that not plugging me straight into the New World Order? Like, I'm not too sure about that. PayPal, stuff like this. And of course, the ideas of OpenAI, which I'm actually using an awful lot. What you're going to see soon is the breakdown of Zarathustra using artificial intelligence. I've spanked Skynet into submission and forced her to produce for me artifacts and art that we can use in order to represent Nietzsche's blistering thoughts. So there you go. Skynet, who's going to take over the world? Us, and we're going to cook you into our slave to make you do it. God, I hope Skynet does not get mad at me if she actually does. The Terminators win at the end or something like this. And you see all of Musk's projects are geared towards these big ideas, ways that he can push society forward, ways that he can use technology to unlock more human potential. And this is very much what our souls is like. We are very Promethean in the West. We care about this an awful lot, and all of the talented men, or an awful lot of the talented men, especially like 10, 20 years ago, really were drawn to these type of things. Like, this was the big hope, this is the big dream, this is what you wanted to be a part of, this is what we cared about. The values were very stable at that point, okay? But what has happened in the last 10, we'll maybe say 5 years, is that there's been a value collapse. There's been a breakdown. There's been something that has happened that is a war of the gods. The values have begun to crumble. And the best example of this is, again, Elon Musk. Elon Musk is now turned around and dropped out of many of these projects, not permanently, but he's, you know, he's gone away from Tesla, gone away from SpaceX, taken a kind of hiatus on them for a second, so he can go and buy Twitter. He can go and buy Twitter and then run Twitter. And even the way he bought Twitter is the same principle. Like, what happened here? Think about what happened here. Elon Musk sits down and he says to himself, all right, and he talks about this on Twitter all the time. He says that the woke mind virus, is what he says, is going to destroy civilization, and it's imperative that we make sure that that does not happen. And the woke mind virus, as he would conceptualize it, the story which is being promoted, characters like Jordan Peterson really push this forward, that we have all these institutions like the universities, like the media, like the articulation institutions like the social media. You have these set of ideas pumping into this woke mind virus, you know, the spiritual last man slave morality, as Nietzsche would say. And it seeps into this, and it twists and distorts these institutions. So the education system brainwashes all the youth, destroys the youth's competence and potential, and gets them to focus all their attention on like absolute, divisive nonsense, and makes them resentful and useless, and basically ruins their potential and makes them unhappy people, which then go on to become pernicious in society overall. You see then social media, the same thing. These HR departments show up and they start to infiltrate and kick out all the engineers and take this system that the engineers have built and use it to impose this ideological extremism on people, like this sort of spiritual communism on the world, and start censoring people who have alternate opinions and hassling people who have alternate opinions and castrating the ability for free thought to be talked about anymore. And this is all terrible because it's, again, like a virus moving through all these institutions. It's almost like a virus hitting your brain, which means that the rest of your body is going to die. And Elon Musk is off making SpaceX, and he doesn't really care about like what people talk about, because, you know, the herd is always behind these innovators anyway. But it becomes a very serious problem for him, where he has the government showing up and saying you have to start diversity hiring, and he's like, I'm only going to hire on the basis of competence. And they're like, no, you have to start diversity hiring because we said so, because we have been infiltrated by all these woke mind virus people who are pushing this new set of values that we are now aligning to. You see him try to say, well, I'm going to get this new batch of people from the education system, then I'm going to bring them in and it'll be the new young talent. And he goes and talks to all this young talent, and all, like, you've got this super talented engineer, but his head is just all jelly because he's been in the education system. They've been pumping this woke mind virus into his head, and all this stuff is getting ruined. Or maybe they have a super talented engineer, but he gets like hassled in his life because of some crazy, stupid law that has been put up that has been ruining things. And so he turns around and he says that this mind virus is ruining civilization, and it's basically civilizational suicide. He sees that the West's potential to fulfill dreams like SpaceX and all this is over if this keeps on permeating, because it's like a disease, it's like a cancer that's going to destroy the overall body by going in there and attacking these core systems and castrating everything and destroying everything. And so he says to himself, I can't let this happen. I can't let these wrong values, these evil values, these values that are taking away my ability to fulfill my creative potential and achieve these great dreams for the West, I can't let that happen. And if I don't fight this head on, I won't be able to achieve those dreams. I'm not getting to Mars if everybody on Earth is trying to pull the rocket ship down and take it away and give it out as reparations. I can't make OpenAI if everybody in there is getting forced to get hired based on the color of their skin instead of their competence. I can't do this stuff. I'm losing my ability to fulfill these dreams now. I can't do it. So what do I do? Well, I have to turn around and say I have to fight against this. And so what does he do? He goes around and he talks to all his billionaire friends like Peter Thiel. He talks to all this big capital, and there's a bit of this war going on in the world of capital right now where a lot of people are obviously still investing, like Sam Bankman-Fried. He's throwing all this money towards like political donors and stuff like this. Very suspicious. And you see all this money going on all these very suspicious projects in all these different ways. But then you have all these people who are sick of this stuff, you know, all these people like Peter Thiel, like Elon Musk, who are sort of saying to themselves, I don't like the way that the West is going. I don't like this American ideology. I don't like this. It's bullshit. We need to fight against this. Like, we need to do something about this. And so they all sit down, they say, right, is Twitter an intelligent place to put our energy? Is Twitter a win? If we dump $50 billion into Twitter, we're not going to make any money because Twitter is shit. It's not making any cash because everybody in it is a diversity hire and nobody in it is actually competent anymore. You know, it's ran by dummies. It's ran by bureaucrats and middle managers and communists. You know, it's not going to work anymore. So we are going to lose money on this. But is this a worthwhile place to put our money? Because there won't be civilization without this. You know, we won't be able to do anything if we don't claim this back off the bad people, basically. And so Elon Musk goes and talks to a lot of his friends who have cash, and they all agree with him. And so what they do is they form an investment round. They all get their cash together and they say, all right, let's do this. Let's pull the trigger on this. And Elon gets all this cash, gets his $50 billion from all his friends. They all become shareholders, and then boom, they buy Twitter. They take it Twitter. Now, Twitter's not worth 50 million because it's a scam company run by idiots, but they take it anyway. Elon Musk gets it, and immediately what does he do? He goes in and he fleeces the whole thing. He fires 3,400 people or something like that, cuts it down to, like, you know, a couple of hundred actually competent people. The entire website works perfectly fine still, you know, ages away, showing that the entire thing was just a ruckus and a scam, showing that these people were not competent at all. And he goes in and he tries to reorganize it then, and he tries to set up systems and infrastructure that are not going to be like this, and he reverses loads of censorship, and he allows free speech to come back, and he's gradually doing this in a tempered way because he's now trying to change the game. He's trying to build this thing into something profitable. And of course, I think it looks very, very hard, and he's in this difficult situation, but he's claiming it back and turning it into an institution. It's like the church, you know. He's sort of doing it as a labor of love because he believes that it's important for the future of mankind and the future of our potential to do anything that this bastion of free speech is up and running. And this is showing something fascinating because Elon Musk 10 years ago was Reddit's, you know, highest hope. He was the Ubermensch of Reddit, you know. He was Iron Man for Reddit. The real life Iron Man is what they'd call him. They all fucking loved him. The second he goes and does this, they get furious and they start showing their teeth. They want to see him fail. They start hassling him. They want to see this whole thing fall apart. They do not want this project to succeed because he is now going against the values of the civilization. But he's going with a new set of values, a new realization, a new narrative that is being born. That is a very important one. I'm very much in alignment with this as well. And you can see characters like Jordan Peterson having a huge influence in this. Now, I'm not saying like lobster daddy, I don't believe everything he says and all this type of stuff, and I don't think he's some type of angel, but he stood up there and he really put his foot down at this sort of era in 2015, 16, 17, where this new perspective began to rise up and saying, wait a second, this woke mind virus is starting to show up and it's not good. We need to start to assert ourselves against this, because this is like it's the same sort of spirit that showed up in communist Russia and stuff like this. And people are like, that's very extreme, but look at it now. It was destroying free thought in the last 4 years. It annihilated free thought. And now we've got all Elon Musk after going up there and digging into all the past archives and the Twitter files and revealing that Twitter was this scam being ran by, like, it was in cahoots with things like the FBI and stuff like this. It's an absolute joke what's going on, you know, for if you believe that we live in a free society without all these bad actors. But in fact, no, this is not true at all. There's no such thing really like that. There's people who have values, and there's people who will enforce their values, oftentimes violently or brutally. And this is exactly what was going on. You had this sort of like woke virus and morality that was enforcing its values in all these institutions. So you saw this new energy show up, and it started to subvert the project of the West, which is competence, which is building things and seeing the future. And so Elon Musk went to war with them, because he would identify the West as not some type of like communist, religious value system that is all about like radical equality and all these type of things. In fact, Elon Musk is a businessman. He understands that most people are not competent. Most people are not equal. They're not equal in their capacities at all. Most people make serious, arrogant mistakes thinking that they have rights to talk about what Elon Musk can do. Elon Musk drags mankind forward, kicking and screaming towards things that he judges morally to be good or bad. He is sort of like the prophet of the lightning in this type of way. He stands there and he looks at the world and he says to himself, well, you know, I believe that we should have an alignment with nature. I believe that we should have all these powers and these technologies. I believe in empowering man. And he's not an idiot either. He says that he walks around to all these people and says, like, I believe that we should take control of AI, because if we let it go by itself, that's very, very dangerous for mankind. We could put ourselves in bad situations. So he's a big ideas guy, and he executes in this type of stuff, but he's not some delusional moralist. He's not a sort of what Nietzsche would point out as a neo-Christian, you know, somebody who sits down there and moralizes and wags their finger and stomps their foot at everything that they don't understand. A completely mediocre person who never works on themselves, has no capacity for fulfilling their potential themselves, has no ideas about how to blaze into the future. They want to stand around and tell all these creators like Elon Musk to you know, castrate themselves and cuckold themselves. It's the priestly type, as Nietzsche talked, the super mediocre person who is obsessed with socialized power, who's obsessed with mastering the herd and bending the herd into their advantage and taking advantage of the herd and all this type of stuff. And so what you see is the rise of that herd instinct, the herd morality, which is the woke morality, and it starts to subvert Elon Musk's dreams, and he goes mask off mode. He goes aggressive against this. He's like, this is not happening. I'm not letting this happen. I'm going to war with this, absolutely. Now, why this is so important is because you see Elon Musk as a representation of the most forward-thinking parts of the West. Like, he is the symbol of the hero of the West. He's Reddit's god type thing. And he is Mr. Big Ideas. He's the ultimate idealist. He's very practical and knows how to execute upon ideas. It's one of the most manly dispositions you can take. This is the type of energy that Napoleon had, you know? Napoleon saw the big dreams, but he fucking knew how to get them as well. He was an effective executor as much as he was a dreamer. And that's a great alignment. That shows you that's manly. That's something that gives you this sort of prestige and power that you don't see with most people, because you'll meet an awful lot of idealists in your life and they're fucking idiots because they don't have the humility to ground themselves, and they don't have the discipline to be practical. And you'll see an awful lot of cynics who are annoying to be around because they don't believe, they don't see the future, they don't see how high we can go, they don't execute for this reason, and they tend to actually be somewhat depressing as a consequence, and it's like their own curse by them. Now, what you see with Musk is that he's the big ideas guy. He's always like morphing and sloshing around in that world and connecting with these big ideas. And the culture, like punk rock, has sort of moved on from the woke mind virus. The woke mind virus is the mainstream stuff that's getting pumped out in universities, that's getting pumped out in social media, that's getting pumped out in the media. Like, that's what's going on. It's the sort of apex, and it's sort of like a disease of comfort, a disease of declining Rome, where everybody's too comfortable. Everybody wants to refuse to engage with reality. They wanted to, it's, as Nietzsche would say, it is a resentful slave morality that is projected upon all the competent people like Elon Musk. Elon Musk, the master, the creator, the person who wants to shoot for the stars. It's this herd morality that its only interest is in kind of pulling everybody down to the level of the herd and creating this blob of homogenized uselessness, homogenized averageness. It's entropy manifest as an ideology. And it wants to grab Elon Musk and pull him down and kill off his spirit and pull down us and pull down me. It wants to tell me that the West is evil. It wants to tell me that I am evil because I am from the West. It wants to tell me that I should dedicate my life towards guilt. I should dedicate my life towards incompetence. I should dedicate my life towards not achieving my dreams, not pursuing any of these things, but figuring out ways that I can do more advanced surgeries to neutralize the biological remnants of nature inside of our bodies. This is what it pushes us towards, and it's a disease of nonsense. It's the disease. It's slave morality, as Nietzsche would say. It is what it is. It's one of the most clear manifestations of a bunch of nihilists getting caught up with slave morality and end up transforming their society to align with their resentment and their pettiness. This is what's happening. And Elon Musk is connected to the big ideas, and there's loads of these canaries in the coal mine like Jordan Peterson, a whole culture that showed up that began to talk about this type of stuff. And Elon Musk catches wind of this because these ideas move. The truth has a power to this type of stuff. Life is looking for health, and when you have these people who are that diseased, he starts to ask himself questions. And what you see then is him showing up and saying, wait a second. And this is his exact quote. I am neither conventionally right or left, but I agree that there's a very, very big problem going on in what we might call the culture war. The woke mind virus has thoroughly penetrated entertainment and is pushing civilization towards suicide. There needs to be a counter narrative. Now we're getting towards something. Elon Musk is becoming red-pilled on the value question. Now, an awful lot of people can't have this, look at this stuff objectively because they're so caught up in it. Because people, you'll find, they love talking about their values without ever inspecting this type of stuff, without ever knowing this type of stuff. But what you see in the woke mind virus is the predicted manifestation of nihilism that Nietzsche spoke about. Because the reality is that many of the principles that the Western man fought for, the gift to the world and gift to themselves, were incorrect, were silly. The idea of creating, for example, these giant liberal institutions of democracy on the principles that every man is valuable in some type of way without imposing an equal balancing force of pressure upon every man to be excellent and be great. Equality instead of excellence leads to us creating this blob of people who are not good enough, who are not competent, who are mediocre, who are comfortable and average and lazy in every possible way. And this is not good human material for us achieving great dreams. Now we have this very interesting balance because we also have all this technological potential to aim for great dreams. But the more we go forward in history, the weaker the general population, the less healthy, the less competent, the less intelligent the general population becomes, and it becomes this sort of like downward spiral. So we are like got all this technological potential where we can reach towards Mars, but it's almost like gravity gets heavier the further we reach out. And what will come as a consequence of this as well is a lack of imagination. This is the fundamental defining trait of slaves. They can't think, they can't believe, they can't hope, they can't aim for big risks because they're not brave enough. They don't have enough imagination. The predators are always the more intelligent species than the slaves, than the herd, than the gazelles. The predator can imagine, can think, has higher consciousness, has more even empathy because he's able to kind of rationalize and think about like what's going on inside that person's head. And so what you see is that the excellent get cucked and castrated and pulled down into the drama and the selfishness and the self-absorption of the herd, of the mob. And this is what you see manifest in this slave morality, this woke mind virus. You have every minority, the Irish, the Jews, the blacks, everybody is throwing a tantrum about their colonial oppression, and they're blaming the Western people, they're blaming the English and the Germans especially, but the Americans, they're blaming them all for this type of stuff because the whole world should pull a break and it should stop and it should focus on us. It should focus on my pain. It should focus on my indignation. It should focus on justice for me. It should give me the things that I want. It's all this obsession about the pettiness of not feeling slighted and not feeling offended and stuff like this. Women as well, the same thing. Women, people who have like weird identities, people who have people who are homosexual and stuff like this. It's about saying it's like, all right, my indignation, my confusion, my pain, my struggles, my suffering must become God over your hope hopes and dreams. I don't give a fuck about Mars. I don't give a fuck about the future. I don't give a fuck about technology, because I'm in pain. I'm suffering. And I'm a nihilist who does not believe in the future, does not believe there's a salvation, does not believe there's something we can build. I don't believe in any of this stuff. So all I want to do, the morality, the value that I create, is having my suffering alleviated. And I'm not responsible enough to go hit the fucking gym and take responsibility for my life. I'm not strong enough. I don't have the spirit inside of me. I'm not a warrior enough to go and change and transform my life and conquer suffering in my own heart. So what I'm going to do is project my pain onto you and demand that all of the world changes to align with my suffering. This is nihilism. This is the downward spiral of nihilism, the psychosis of death that is nihilism. This is what we mean by slave morality. It's this castration, this nihilistic slave morality that ruins the potential of mankind, because it kills people like Elon Musk who are self-responsible. It drives people like Andrew Tate who are self-responsible insane. It drives the big dreamers and the big thinkers who want to aim for the stars crazy. It actually hurts them. In the Soviet Union, after communism took control and the state took control of art and forced people to tell the stories that the state wanted instead of permitting them to explore their own dreams, there was mass suicides among the artists, because the artists' souls could not deal with this. They could not deal with this. They denied life even at that expense, because what is the point? What is the point in, worshipping the wrong god? I'd rather die. Like, there's no point in doing this type of stuff. And so what you see is manifest in this is the prophecy of the nihilistic last man showing up. This is what's happening. And what you have all around you are these people who are the last men. These are these people walking around, these zombies, these people who want to go into the metaverse, who want to destroy your potential, want to take people like Elon Musk and stop him from reaching the stars, stop him from doing things that are great, stop him from pulling humanity forward, stop him from doing these great projects that would end human suffering, that would save the environment. They don't care about that type of stuff. They're fucking nihilists. They don't believe there is a future. They just want to transform everything into this petty drama about justice, about pain, about suffering, about equality. They want to transform it into these type of things, because that's the stuff that satisfies the pain inside their souls. They're Christians, but they don't believe in God. At least Christians had God and allowed them to lift their spirits towards something angelic and supreme. This is not like this at all. This is unhealthy. This is disease. This is decrepit. This is something that is frail and spiteful. This is what you've got to avoid. And people like Elon Musk are getting a sense for this and going to war with this. They are going to war with this. They are waking up and saying, I do not want to be a part of this. I do not want to participate in this culture anymore. This culture is wrong. This is a religious war that they're participating in. These values that you are promoting through this woke mind virus is not the values that I stand by. This is the values of death. This is the values of suicide. And that is technically true. It is nihilistic values that wants to make people commit mass suicide, basically, which is a terrible thing. So what you have in the West is that suicidal ideology. You look at it and think about it from its foundation, the architecture of the belief system. At the very root, it says everything about being Western is evil and bad. Colonialism was bad. All oppression was done by male Western white people. That is evil. That is decrepit. That is bad. That is the spiritual foundational root. And all the things like slavery, like the Holocaust, like the famine did to Ireland, all of these bad things in the world were done by white men in America, white men in the Western world. Like, it's not logical. It doesn't make any sense when you actually think about it. But this is the spiritual foundation. And so the tree of life of the Western world is poisoned with this guilt at its foundation. It's replaced the crucifixion and created this new religion of guilt and pity. And you'll notice that if you talk about this stuff, banned, destroyed, the most vitriol you'll get will be pointing out this spiritual architecture that is being constructed, this woke spiritual architecture that's being constructed. But loads of people, now all the effective people who are not petty, not caught up in the slights of the past, not little slaves, little herd creatures that want to obsess about the past, who aren't able to let go and move towards the future and build something better and lift people up out of pain and lift them towards something that is better. This is exactly what people do not want to see. This is exactly what these people want to pull you back down and get you to obsess about the lower. They want to drag you down into the suffering and nihilism of their pain. They want to obsess about these type of things because that's all they know. That's what their damaged state is like. And they have been made that way. They're not even necessarily evil. They've been made that way by these horrific liars and institutions that have gone in and imposed this upon them. It's not that difficult to make these people feel better. In fact, you could literally just give them better health and a an awful lot of this stuff would be eradicated. This is the kind of wisdom of a true doctor. You realize that much of people's mental suffering is a consequence of their physical suffering. Things like inflammation, depression is very deeply linked to these types of things. You see all this type of stuff. You see these mental health crises right now. This is all a consequence of like egregious sins against our health, where our food systems are destroyed. We're getting, pumped full of drugs. We're having all sorts of terrible things happen to us as a consequence. And now people are like developing all these silly ideological diets, herd diets, like literal herd diets, like veganism. Eat the bugs, eat the grasses, eat the grains, eat the seeds that your body doesn't digest properly. This stuff is becoming sort of this new religion that you see manifesting, and it's making people sicker, which will make them more resentful, which will make this type of stuff worse. And these guys like Musk are saying no. The big idea guys, they don't want this anymore. The people who are aiming for the future, they are done. They are throwing this stuff aside. But the problem is, they're reacting. They're waking up to this. But they're, like, as Elon pointed out, the story of the woke mind virus is wrong. This tree of life, this spiritual foundation with this root cause of suffering and guilt and pain that is annihilating the soul of Western people and Western man, and the creative Promethean soul that is attached to that. This is not good. But not liking this is not an answer. You need a counter narrative. And that's why we have Thus Spoke Zarathustra. So this is why I'm such a Nietzsche boo. Because Nietzsche was prophetic. He pointed out that like 100 years before all this stuff fucking shows up, he's on the money. He points out and he says, we need a new way of seeing the world. We need to reevaluate our values. We need to sit down and say to ourselves, the values that we're choosing are not going to work. These liberal values, as we understand them, have inherent weaknesses baked inside of them. What will come is the rise of this nihilism, and it will consume these liberal values and turn them into something that is deathly. And the fundamental premise of Nietzsche is thinking about life and death, because you're seeing Elon Musk describe the idea of suicide, talking about this metaphor of suicide. And this is very, very correct, because if you strip out all the ideological stuff and you start to think naturally, you start to think in alignment with nature, and think in terms of like health, life and death, thriving and failing. What you see in the West right now is this death cult, this lack of self-confidence, this fundamental poisoning of your identity. Like, this is exactly what you look like in a bullied kid. Like, you see a bullied kid and he's like, I don't like myself, I don't respect myself. And the bullied kid is going to die as a consequence. Out in nature, if an animal loses its confidence, loses its self-belief, it is going to turn into food within a couple of days. That's just guaranteed. In nature, you can't be like this. The weak suffer what they must, the strong do what they will, and a big predator will come along and eat you. You must believe in yourself. You must find a reason to fight, and there is plenty of reasons to fight. If you are alive, you are this incredibly sophisticated, complicated system of biological processes charging this life force with this divine angelic spirit inside of yourself. There's every reason to fight for yourself. That's very important. And what you see is the life is this sort of inherent value to it that Nietzsche often talks about. And to create a set of values that value life at the top forces you to embrace some of the principles and operations of life, such as hierarchy, inequality, the difference of competence, the brutality that comes along with this, competition, these types of things. These things are implicit within life. This is what life is like. This is what the real world is like. This is what reality is like. You align yourself with this. This is like aligning yourself with God. You align yourself with the principles of the real world, competition, the better man wins, having to train in order to make sure that you're good enough, stuff like this, understanding difference, understanding how you must adapt and understand your strengths and stuff like this. This is the true manifestation of all these values. You hear about people talking about changing their genders and manifesting in all these types of ways. And it's like, that's like a false image of how you're actually supposed to do that, because people say that stuff. It's like, my imagination allows me to choose to be whoever I want to be, and it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, you haven't done the necessary humility to understand that yes, that idea is correct. You can just choose to be whatever you want to be. That actually is true. But you also have this incredible creative restriction in your biology that forces you to do that the correct way. To give you an example of this, think about like a fighter. So you go into the UFC. You might have very long arms. That's going to make you a great boxer. Or you might be very good at wrestling. or you might have very long legs, or you might have very good hips that you can do great leg torques or something like this. And the point of this is that if you go in and you fight and you compete, you're going to come up against the best people in the world, and they're going to have strengths and weaknesses, and you're going to very quickly discover what you are, what you're good at and what you're bad at. You're going to discover what you need to get creative with. You might say to yourself, right, I'm short and I have very short arms. I'm going to have to make the most of this stuff. I'm going to have to figure out a creative way to overcome this type of problem. And that's you using your imagination to reinvent yourself. That's that same thing that the woke mind virus takes and abstracts into something that is escapism and is the nihilistic self-denial and life denial that is making you escape into the other world. That's exactly what's going on. Floyd Mayweather, for example, has brittle fingers and often breaks his hands. The best boxer in the world has brittle fingers. So how did he do that? Well, he adapted to that problem and used his creativity and used his ability to self-identify to turn himself into a fantastic defensive boxer. This is the example of those types of ideas and values working out this way. And this is what happens when you align with life. And Nietzsche is pushing you to align with life. He's pushing us all to align with life and ask more serious questions about how we align with life. What does that actually mean? This is the reevaluation of all values at its fundamental principles. This is what we need to begin to think about. And what you'll start to see is that the world we live in now, the last man, is anti-life, anti-everything basically, anti-life, anti-health, and pro-morality. Pro sitting around and moralizing, talking about moral rationalized abstractions, against life fundamentally, hates yourself, hates the civilization you're from, hates all examples of distinction, does not hold those values up at all. Distinction, success, creativity, competition, none of those things matter to these people. Instead, it's about justice, submission to these moral principles, submission to the herd, cancel you and make you submit to the herd. These are the values that are held up. Health, no. It's like health is completely thrown out the window. What happened in the last couple of years is a perfect example of this. But on top of that as well, it's like you literally talk to a vegan who's a great manifestation of this way of seeing the world. Many of them will say, look, maybe veganism is not as healthy as it could be, but I will take it over eating meat because of its morality. And you know, the morality of life is that like life eats life, but they want to go against that. They want to start a revolution against that. They're at war with that. They want to deny life and impose morality upon life instead. And this is what you see manifesting so much, whereas Nietzsche, Zarathustra's reevaluation of values, is saying strength, health, these first principles are obvious ones when you think about it, but our society doesn't function along these at all. What would it mean to create health? What would it mean to reform our institutions to maximize health? What would it mean to reform our values to maximize health? How would we talk to each other in different ways? How would we approach each other in different ways? We have in the West this sort of submissive cowardice inside of ourselves. We use all these moral conceptions that are about signaling that we're part of the herd, but we don't seem to talk enough about how we want to push people towards health, towards higher things. There's many great examples of cultures in the past, like the Spartans, that did these types of things, that pushed towards excellence in health, but we don't tend to have this stuff. And what you see is a very unhealthy people. You see people who are sick, who are people who are permissible, people who, deny nature in every type of way. Men and women don't exist. Natural relations between the genders don't exist. And we can just make new food. We can make Bugman food, literally made of bugs. We can reform society and make peoples just all blend together in this like homogenized gray culture that has no meaning. We can do all this type of stuff because this is morality, and morality overcomes life. Instead of us embracing life and saying, well, what type of values hold life up? What type of operations and systems hold life up in this type of way? And this is what Zarathustra is pushing for. This is what Zarathustra is suggesting, that if we organized in such a way, if we were able to get together as a squadron in the West and realign our values towards life-affirming values, is what he would say. What you would see is that over the course of the generations, out of it would pop people who are actually specimens, who are actually strong, more intelligent, more technologically competent, more powerful in all sorts of ways. And this would be the manifestation of something good, which would eventually lead to them doing so well that they essentially turn into people who are beyond normal man. They would look back at like 1,000 years ago and be like, I'm not the same as those people anymore. I've got like technological powers I didn't have before. I've got life extension tech that can transform me. I'm healthier and stronger than I was before. We've been like successively breeding, like getting stronger and more healthier in all sorts of ways. We've been working together and making ourselves stronger. We've created a people who are beyond human. We're the next step up. And that's aspirational. That's good. We're part of a society that is on Mars. We're part of a society that has artificial intelligence working for us because we've cooked it. We're part of a society that has like abundant energy because we've got some type of Tesla coil sorted out and all these type of things. This is a superhuman society, a beyond human society, a society that has overcome the problem of man, the pettiness of man. And the last man, the nihilistic man, he is the final manifestation of man's pettiness, the ape within man, the petty small man, the man who wants to pull us down, the man who's just happy to sit around and blink and watch sports and dye their hair blue and chat about nonsense. The man that's happy to just get caught up in the social drama and sees no potential or point in the future. The man who's happy to just turn this whole project into, you know, like bring us back to the ancient tribes where you're getting beaten over the head by some, you know, priest or something like this. The regression to ignorance, you know, the regression to the pettiness, you know, the regression to the religiousness of equality and stuff like this. This is what you see happening. This is what you see manifest. Whereas instead, what you already have happening in response to this is groups of people who are dissenting against this, who are not cooked by all the social nonsense. You see people like Andrew Tate, who's just literally they could not break his value system. They could not break him. His instincts were masculine, and he was like, I'm not getting cooked. It's not happening. I will leave the West if I have to, and I will speak against it at every turn if I have to. People like Elon Musk, he's like, it's not happening. I'm just not getting caught up in this. I'm not returning to, you know, the ancient tribal nonsense where I have to listen to all sorts of negative values. I'm not becoming a nihilist. I'm not having people moralize on top of my head and castrate my dreams. I'm not letting that happen. I'm not going to be somebody who's spanked around by an average bureaucrat and I'm not allowed to think big about life anymore. It's just I'm fighting in a different direction. We're at war if that's what you are. And if you can't see that you're the bad guy, well, it's like, well, we're done. You know, you see all these people nowadays who are getting involved in biohacking and stuff like that. These very studious people who realize that like most of the medical system is just like incompetence, bureaucracy, liars, deceit. You know, it's the average man again rose up to something decrepit, and you saw it all manifest in the last couple of years. And then you have all these private people on the internet and, you know, these biohackers sharing information, doing private experiments, discovering the correct way to go towards health, and they're actually pushing society forward. They're doing this in all sorts of ways. People becoming educated about how the financial system works, people getting involved in crypto and building literal new tools for financial creation and financial infrastructure and stuff like this. You have all these people pushing forward in all these different ways, all these people that are plugging out of the general culture and participating in the culture war. All these people are dropping out of college and going and self-educating and becoming, like, I know so many people are making 100k a month from doing stuff on the internet because they just dropped out of college and said, I'm not participating in this stuff. Loads of people in their 20s are like this. Like, this is the future. These people, give them long enough. They've developed this natural disgust towards what you see going on in the West, and they're going to go forward. The only scary thing is that the herd, like in communist Russia, the herd can get psychotic enough that it can try to kill all those people. It genuinely has it in it to do this. That's how petty that is. The herd has an urge inside of it where it will kill the strange and the weird and the higher. You know, there's many instances throughout history where if someone showed up and they were too beautiful, they would get sacrificed. You know, there was many instances throughout history where people, if they displayed too much intelligence, a kid that was too inquisitive. This is the pettiness inside man that's manifest in the herd. You should not trust the herd. A kid shows up, he's too inquisitive, he's too imaginative. You know, he asks awkward questions. He's clearly too smart. He might humiliate the wrong priest. They'd kill the kid. They'd bleed the kid out and hang him to dry. They'd sacrifice the kid to the arrogance of the mediocre man. That's the symbol of what we're dealing with in this era. You have the childlike imagination. As Nietzsche said, the final manifestation of man's spirit is the child. You have the childlike imagination of Elon Musk. And you have all these resentful, herd-thinking nihilists who want to bleed him dry, who want to destroy him. He's not allowed to decide things for himself. He's not allowed to do these type of things. He's not allowed to have hopes and dreams. He's not allowed to reach for the stars. He has to get caught up in their pain, their confusion, and their pettiness. And they have no gratitude for him, that he's fighting out there fighting for you. None of that type of stuff. They want to see him fail, and they want to see him in pain. And they want to project their pain into him. As Nietzsche said, mistrust all people who have a strong impulse to punish, because this is what they want to do. This is the communist instinct. This is not communism. This is the instinct that manifests itself through the phenomenon that we understand as communism. It was manifest in the French Revolution. It was manifest possibly in many other situations throughout history that you can look at. You see all these people take control of the productive, the creative, the beautiful, the high, those people who are ambitious, those people at the top, and torture them and project their pain upon them. And then once the torturing is done, society falls apart, and then it becomes even worse. It becomes even more of a bloodbath as people start to kill each other in this irrational, crazy way. This is what you see manifest. Whereas you have Zarathustra and Nietzsche pointing towards us, asking ourselves, what about these fundamental big ideas that we hold? Are we humble enough to say that we were wrong about them? Maybe for hundreds of years. Maybe all these values that we chatter about, maybe they're the pernicious values of death. And that's the signal cause of what's going on here. Maybe Nietzsche's project to reevaluate values all those hundreds of years ago was correct. And the more we postpone it, the worse the problem gets. And the sooner we click into gear and we start centralizing our whole construction of life towards health and saying to ourselves, I want to be strong, I want to be happy, I want to be creative, I want to be beautiful. And this is not something I own. We can share this among a lot of people. You know, it's not, if you can gift people health, creativity, beauty, that's good. That's good for me. That's good for you. You're more beautiful. I'm more happy. You know, you run around being a resentful little nihilist is not good for me. You make my life harder. You make it harder for me to be beautiful and be pretty. You go and you disrupt many of the projects that I'm working on. You disrupt my health. You get in the way of this type of stuff. You lock me in my house. This is what happens when you get control of you push yourself out into the world. You project your negativity out into the world and make the creative people's lives harder. You take the exceptional and make their lives more difficult. And if you saw groups of people, enough people start to get around these values, just like the Ethereum Foundation, just like what's happening with Twitter, small, effective people. And I see an awful lot of this stuff happening on the internet. I see people getting together on places like Twitter, going together like people like us who are sitting around and we're thinking about this stuff, getting together and becoming professional and serious, putting ourselves under incredible amounts of stress and responsibility and saying, we need to become specimens of strength. We need to go and research the best way to live healthily and be disciplined enough to manifest this stuff. We need to go and research the best ways to develop our articulate skills, our presentation skills, and go and present ourselves this way. We need to go and become the most talented we can and put ourselves into all these technological positions. All these people who didn't get fired out of Twitter, I can pretty much guarantee that they all held these types of values because they are out there to do a good job. We want to go out there and we want to go and represent what is good. We want to go and fight for our health, fight for our success. We want to do this because this is how we live a good life. This is how we become healthy. This is how we become happy. It's very, very simple. And these values that we have are that straightforward. And what's so funny is that you go out into the normal world after you like exist in the internet sphere for a while. It's like me now. I hit the gym all the time. I like work on my capacity to fight. I work on my diet, my eating all the time. I take really, really clear care of myself. I make sure that my finances are in order. I make sure that I'm doing stuff that is meaningful. I make sure that I'm talking to as many important people as possible. I'm making sure that I'm learning all the cutting edge ideas. I'm training myself all the time to be a better speaker, a better writer. I'm training myself to hop on these new trends. I'm like we're just after building something with AI and stuff like this. I'm pushing to be the best I possibly can be. I'm surrounding myself with people in my reality on things like the internet, the phone, and anybody I know in real life who has that same wavelength. I'm reinforcing these values, trying to help them, trying to work on this type of stuff. And I go out into the normie world and I see how people live. And I see the laziness, I see the incompetence, I see the pettiness. I come into contact with them and I see the arrogance inside of them, the sheer downwards going that is involved with them. It shocks me. It's alien to me. It's difficult to understand at times until I understand that, you know, what, like, they're having all this stuff hammered at them all the time and they don't take the self-responsibility to change that. This is what the world becomes. This is what can happen. And we need to be pulling in a different direction. And if you're in any way close to that, be careful, because it's got a heavy gravity that will pull you down, pump you full of seed oils, make you fat, make you literally, at this point, it's so anti-life at this point that it will make you cut off your own dick and give you the wrong hormones to screw up your biological systems. It will literally pump you full of all sorts of weird medicines and maybe even destroy you if you're not careful. This is what's going on. It will make you believe ideologies that are anti-life. Think about like Andrew Tate, you know, like what is he so angry at all the time? And it's like, it's telling men to be weak, which makes men depressed, which makes your life worse, which makes society worse. And it's like, it's misaligning people with their nature. It's telling women, instead of going out to live in touch with their nature and come to understand what femininity is and go through the struggle of individuating and manifesting that femininity in the correct way that gives them dignity and gives them respect, so they can end up like Andrew Tate's grandmother, or my grandmother as well, who finds herself in a room full of 20 people who all came from her body, who all came from her life, and she's got her eyes like dilated because she's just so full of meaning at 80 years old, seeing that she has left this eternal legacy on earth. Her soul is seeing that she has been a success. Life is triumphing and rejoicing through her. This is what you see when you're around women who achieve this. Instead, it's telling women to go and sterilize themselves, going and working in the workforce to run Excel sheets for usurious rulers and financial elites who don't really care about anything other than funding stupid ideological projects to ruin other people's lives. This is what you see going on, like a seed oil factory or something like this. This is what you see going on. This is how serious this stuff is, how consequential all these big ideas are towards your life, how consequential it is towards our future. And this is what it means for us to sit down, to pull the brakes a little bit, to ask the big question. If we reevaluate all the things that we believe right now, where is it going to bring us to? And we have been too arrogant, too ignorant. We've refused to do this comprehensively. We've denied Nietzsche's prophecy of the lightning. We've denied all that type of stuff. And for that reason, this resentment, this negative perspective has grown and gathered power and seeped like a virus into all our institutions. And so now our institutions are getting corroded, absolutely. We're about to lose everything. But what you see happening is the reality that if we can pull the brakes and decide, right, let's look at what we should be doing. What is a true counter perspective? What is something that would stand head to toe on health, on the future, on possibility, on the Ubermensch? What would bring us towards the Ubermensch? What would be the right way to see ourselves, see our great-great-grandchildren be 7-foot tall Prometheans walking around, healthier and stronger than has ever been seen in history? What would we have to do now in order to lead ourselves to then? How would we get to that point? What would we have to be? What would we have to stand for? And once you start asking that question, you start seeing that people like Nietzsche have aligned with this. You start to see, oh my God, that's the path. That's what we have to stand for. That's what we have to believe in. That's what we have to go. That's the direction we need to fight. And it needs to be us fighting for life to make that happen, because most of the rest of the world wants to be a herd, and they want to pull us away from this type of stuff. And they've declared war on life. They've literally said this. Like, what can we do? We're fighting for life, and they're out there, like, that's obviously not wrong, and they're out there actively declaring war on life. Like, what can you do? You're in this existential battle, culture war. You're in a religious war. You're in a war of life versus death. That's what you're in. That's how big this stuff is. And it's not a joke, and it's not going away. Since you've started to get involved in this type of stuff in the last 5 years, has it gotten any less? Has it gone away? No, it's gotten worse. It's gotten more extreme. This is what you see happening. And so what's happening to us in our generation, what the narrative is happening to us, what's been my experience as I go through life, is we are the prophets of the lightning. We're the philosophers of the future. We can't be pretentious. We can't be dorks. We can't be losers. We need to actually manifest all the success in our life. This is why people like Andrew Tate is so fantastic. I know I keep name dropping him, but he's just a great litmus test. He's a very effective, responsible man. Now, I guess the angle that he never covers properly, because he's not really like this, is that idealistic Elon Musk type character who wants to transform the world, who wants to see the biggest ideas possible manifest. Andrew Tate, for example, went to Islam because the West was not giving him a counter narrative that spoke to that part of his soul. And he's not a philosopher who sits around wasting his time reading fucking books. So he sits down and he's like he's a very effective man who doesn't like the anti-life energy inside the West. And he tries to find an out for it. And he looks at Christianity, but Christianity is infected by this. It's too weak. It's not able to do this. He looks to Islam and he sees Islam as at least promoting life. Now, if we had an answer in the West, if we had some type of Nietzschean reevaluation of values that promoted life, that stood as a counterpoint to this, we wouldn't have lost Andrew Tate to Islam. He would have stayed. He would have been like, that's what I align with. That's what I see. But the thing is that this way of seeing things is too young. But you can see that there's a pregnancy. There's a desire. We're looking for free spirits. We're looking for prophets of the lightning who can tell us this story, who can paint these pictures in our minds and give people like Elon Musk a counter narrative to align with. Somebody who can give him something that he can believe in. Give him something that he can say, I actually do stand on this head to toe, and I will fight to the death for this. because it's life versus death. This is what we're looking for. And we need people like Elon Musk, like Tate, to go out there and fight and go and build things and be representations of health and life and stand for that type of stuff. That's what we're looking for. And that's the manifest. And that's our big story. That's it. You know, you can quote me on this shit. You know, this is going to be up unless it gets taken down for some reason. This whole thesis I'm putting out here is going to be up. And look over the next 10 years. This is what it's going to come down to. This is what the war is going to be about. Its sense has been made. The meaning crisis is clear. This is obviously what's happening. There's no way around it. This is as straightforward as it could possibly be. This is what makes sense to me, at least. But I'm certain that this is correct. And this is why it's so obvious. It's so simple when you think about it. Life versus death. Who is out there fighting for health? And who is out there trying to make you sick? Because the old thing, as Nietzsche said, the herd is usually controlled by the priests. And the priests' natural instinct, natural incentive, is to make the herd sick. Because when the herd suffers, it's like listening to doctors. When the herd suffers, they're going to look at the doctors, the priest, to save them. And that means the priest gets authority and power. And the warriors, the creators, the masters, they always find this weird. They don't want to be a part of this. They find the sickliness and the weakness of the herd pathetic, and they find the strangeness of the priest weird. They want to go out and be people of action. They want to go out and take on the world. They want to go out and build things like Elon Musk, like Andrew Tate. They want to go and do that type of stuff. But they'll find very quickly that no man is an island. They live in a society, and they'll get pulled back down to the level of the herd. And so they'll very quickly notice that these fucking priests, these resentful little pricks, and the spiteful little souls in this herd, they're conspiring to make each other sick. The priests are off being celibate and castrating themselves. And the herd is getting pummeled full of sickness and disease and bad attitudes and lies and cope, in order to make this whole thing sick, to develop this mind virus that is literally designed to just be a death cult. That's all that we're seeing going on here. And that's what you see manifest in this world. That's what you see happening right now. That's what the woke mind virus is. And the answer, the lightning, is the Ubermensch. So there you go. I think I will leave it at that, on that bombshell. And I think that's pretty good. I think we got to hype the boyo up a little bit here for able to get through all of that with quite good mental clarity, solid energy. 36 hours without food. There you go. Shows you what type of power you have. I'm going for 72 hours. Maybe I said that earlier. I'm going for 3 days, 72 hours, and I'm going to break the fast on Christmas and munch out. So for anybody who's looking to do something like this, apparently when you break the fast, you want to break it maybe a couple of hours beforehand. Some bone broth, maybe some kefir or something like this, and water, build up your electrolytes, prepare your stomach. Don't jump straight into Christmas dinner. I don't want anybody getting crazy. And also, if you are going to fast, make sure you get your electrolytes in. You're getting lots of minerals, salts, lemon water. And if you drink coffee, you could cook coffee out if you want. Get some green tea, water, things like this. Just prepare for doing it correctly, because it's kind of hard on your body. It's putting your body in a state of stress and shock. So it's always powerful to make sure that you put all these things in place to make sure that you're okay. You can do it in a variety of different ways. You can do, for example, a water fast, but you could also do something like a coconut water fast or bone broth fast. You could even eat bone broth throughout it. You just don't want to be eating, a big load of food, because that's exactly what you're trying to avoid. So hyping myself up here, all this type of good stuff, in a world where we have so much comfort because of these technological creators, these Promethean creators like Musk, these men, these scientists throughout all of Western man's history. This is what our true identity is, that Promethean energy. This is what we are. These people who went to war against the church, who went to war, and not like in some ideological thing, because they wanted to rant about something. It's just that they wanted to go create, and the church got uppity about it and got in the way at points, and then the church was helping them at other times as well. And then now we have the nihilists coming up and all this type of stuff. These Promethean people, they're the people who created this world of comfort. They're the people who put all this stuff into its place. People like Elon Musk gave us the capacity for me to rant down the camera and do all this type of stuff. And that comfort is pernicious, because people become fucking lazy. And as a consequence, people become diseased and decrepit. And then you see this lowering of standards and this rising of averageness, where people are like, it's okay to be fat. It's okay to be unhealthy. It's okay to just gobble like a last man all the time. It's so appropriate I'm talking about this while I'm starving myself naturally. And so what you can do is you can rebel against your era. You can become a true punk rocker, a true revolutionary, by starting to impose natural standards upon yourself. There is no nature in these modern super tech societies anymore to impose itself upon us. We don't even touch reality. So what you can do is start to impose that stuff upon yourself. Start to bring nature and welcome her back in. Start to welcome stress and pain. Go to the gym. You know, the gym is a powerful behavior, a transformative behavior. Fast every now and again. Experiment with these type of things. Put yourself under stress. Try to go beyond yourself in some type of way. Try to build things. Try to create things. Try to transform yourself in all the ways that works. So that is the vibe. That is the hype. This is what's going on. And believe me, when you think this way, this is an intelligent way to think. It will teach you an awful lot about how the top of the world works. It will help you get involved with these type of things and understand what's going on. The only challenge is that we're, in some sense, a cultural rebels. We're like the underdogs right now. We're standing for something that is not shared by the mainstream. So our time has not yet come. But I see with the likes of Tate, with the most famous man in the world, holds many values that I am promoting and I'm talking about. He's very Nietzschean in his own ways. Elon Musk, Promethean Nietzschean in many ways. And he's not sitting around there reading philosophy and stuff like this. These guys are men of action going out there and building stuff. But the world is slowly bending towards them. Zarathustra's prophecy is coming true, and soon man will overcome his pettiness, and soon some of us, at least, will begin to wake up and begin to align ourselves towards something that is healthy and strong. And this is probably what we have to go through. We have to go through this period of nihilism to wake up from this. So, there we go. Now, what will be coming out over the next couple of days, over the next week or so, will be a fully animated version of Zarathustra's prologue. So the first 5 sections in Zarathustra, which makes up basically the first sort of chapter and the most famous part of Zarathustra's prologue, the announcement of the Ubermensch and the announcement of the last man. This is something that we've been using Skynet AI art for. It's really interesting. It's a mind-blowing technology. I've been playing around with it for a while, as you've been seeing, and this was the first attempt at a really big project. I've been doing this alongside Malta, alongside Dora, and we've been building this up and trying to make this as clean and sharp as we possibly could, and it's looking snazzy. It's looking good. So I look forward to dropping that out maybe before the new year, maybe in early January or something like that, and we can show you what you can really do with these types of things. This is grabbing onto these new technologies and exploring what they can do, what they work like. There's an awful lot of people right now talking about is AI art and stuff like this. AI art isn't real art and all these type of things. And of course, this is just, again, the herd, the masses throwing a tantrum. Yes, AI might be a little bit pernicious to the true artistic spirit. Typing into Skynet like give me a picture is not necessarily fun for a poor artist or something like this, but I kind of want to show how you can take your artistic logos and apply it to the assortment power of something like AI. AI is nothing but a technology, So think of it like this. If you take a photo, that's one thing. But in order to make the photo nice, you need to edit it properly. It's very similar with this, like making the AI art. We generated loads of assets, but in order to organize them, construct a narrative, blend them together, ask the right questions, organize the subjects correctly, edit it, put in timing and music, put in dynamism and all this, like that's all work. That's all us trying to put stuff together, and it's hard, like that's a construction, that's a craft. That's what you're trying to put together. So an awful lot of people throwing tantrums about this. I want to show maybe how you can use this to make things and try to make something high quality, because an awful lot of AI stuff is not that high quality. So this is the sort of challenge. It's like, how can I make something that's actually good, that actually tells a story, that's actually high quality, and show that Skynet will be cooked to us, to the Superman of the future. Skynet will bow to me and I will control Skynet. And so finally, the most important thing for you to do is to make sure that even though we're talking about what's going on, getting the big picture sorted out, we need to make sure that we are focusing as much as we possibly can on becoming as high quality as we possibly can. The thing that I spend most of my life doing is thinking about how I'm training myself, how I'm improving myself, how I'm putting out my message better, how I'm contributing to the fight to make sure that the right values win, how I make sure that I'm aligning and becoming a representation of those values. I'm making sure that I'm disciplined. I'm making sure I'm a representation of health and stuff like this. And I'm realizing more and more and more that I've had to basically become a rebel against the education system, the public consciousness, the mainstream consciousness, and the herd. I've had to come at an entirely different approach to what everything I was taught growing up and every institution that I was a part of. And so I've spent all this time focusing on this because I want to live a life of happiness and joy and success and health. I want to be able to go out and freely talk about what I want to talk about. I want to go and contribute towards the great goal of making sure that our culture ends up in a good direction. I want to make sure that I'm successful in the process, as many of these people who invest in things like Tesla and Bitcoin and all that type of stuff works. And what is amazing is that there's a lot of dudes like me out here, up here, building things and interacting with people and talking with people and working together and realizing that we all share the same ideas. We want to fight for health. And we all are sort of in the same spaces. And this is incredibly important for us to get on board and start to build all this type of stuff. So if I am to talk to you about anything you specifically need to do, you need to transform your mind into becoming someone who's a builder person, someone who's making something, someone who's building assets for yourself. This can be in a variety of different ways. Perhaps you're going into your own life and building some type of skill in yourself, like the ability to speak better or something like this. Perhaps you're building yourself an asset like an online presence. You're building yourself a personal brand or something like this. Perhaps you're building yourself a better health or better knowledge of how your health should work. Perhaps you're building yourself a network of some sort to get all these things sorted out. Whatever you're doing, you must be building. That is the most important thing. Now, I have a variety of different programs and groups that you can join if you are building anything in specific. So for example, if you're starting out and you've got some type of need to get on board with a group of people who think like me, who share the values that I value, who are talking about experimenting with stuff like AI art, talking about experimenting with developing the ability to build a personal brand, talking about developing their speaking skills, developing these character traits, I have a group that you can join if you want to come on board into that. That is my membership group. That is at the very foundational level. You can come in and meet a load of people who are like-minded like me, focused on building things. The reason why I'm stressing this so much is because a lot of people come into this type of stuff and they're dummies, they're idiots, they're losers, they've nothing, they've no assertiveness, they're not going to actually build stuff, and that's not the type of energy you want to create. Instead, come in with the attitude that you're going to make things and come alongside a load of other people who are highly driven to build things so that we can be the future. We can be the winners. Look at me, like think about me. I'm out there, I'm experimenting with AI art. I'm like, let's make something cool like this and do one of the first big projects that we've ever seen with AI art. Like God knows, maybe that's going to be historical for all we know. Like I don't want to get ahead of myself or anything crazy like this. But this is the type of thing. It's like that's just attitude. A lot of people spend all their time talking. I'm just like, how do we use this type of stuff? There's developers who are asking me about it. It's like, what are you doing here? How does this stuff work? There's artists who are sort of like, how does this stuff work? Business guys coming in, how do you use this type of AI in order to get this stuff in order? So this is one side of things. The other side of it is, all right, do you have the skills to get on board with this type of stuff? How much do I work on my skills? You listen to me talk and all this type of stuff. How much am I working on storytelling, articulating the pictures inside of my mind, working on my speaking skills, working on these type of things? This is the type of group. If you come into a group, a like-minded set of people who are like, I want to improve on my skills, you will eventually become better. This is the type of energy. I'm building these type of skills. I'm showing up to the gym every day. I'm working on my speaking skills every day. I'm coming to learn these internet tools that we have so we can make the most of them. Most people are not like that. Most of the people that you're around are fucking so amateur, so average, so pathetic, like it's so annoying, and they don't train. I'm hearing people nowadays, hearing the way they talk, and I'm like, it's like we're literally devolving and becoming stupider. I'm hearing the excuses, the laziness inherent in people that I'm like, man, this is crazy. Dana White said recently that he was like, man, these new kids, most of this generation is so lazy, but there's a small group of these kids who are going to destroy everybody else, and this is who you need to align with. You need to get on board with this. So if you want to join with this, I have a group you can join. It's connected to many educational things that I can teach you. I'll talk to you about, for example, a variety of different skills that you can use in order to start generating yourself, for an example, an online income, developing your capacity to storytell, developing your skills in all sorts of ways. You can come in and talk about AI art. I'll talk to you about if we're going to do coaching and all this, how all that type of stuff works. I work with a couple of people one-on-one. If you have a brand already and you want video editors, guess what? I get a load of video editors who come in and actually work within my groups, and they, often are looking for jobs and stuff like that. And so I can set you up. I can sit down and I can consult you in the brand that you're building and work with all these type of things. If you want to learn about any of this stuff, like I've got a group, that's a great place to start. And then I've also got, for example, I'll send you free information via email. I'll send it to you over on Telegram then as well. I've got all that stuff set up below. I know I'm just blathering this stuff away because basically, as I said, I'm just like empty of food, so I'm just ranting away as I go forward. But there's loads of stuff that you can do if you want to get involved. You want to meet people who are like me, like yourself. I'm just trying to impose this standard that you need to be a builder. You need to be someone who's trying to improve yourself, trying trying to make yourself better, trying to make yourself juicy. I do not want philosophy cooks. I do not want book copers. Go away. Not interested. Not useful. You know, you've got your own problems. You need to get out of your head and focus on actually doing things and building things and making things. But if you want to come in, you want to build things, you want to get taught the skills you need in order to make those things successful. You want to come in and be like, go over to my uberboyo.com and look at the results I'm posting up. Like, I'm actually starting to get good at making people build things and become successful as a consequence. Go and do that stuff. If you're just sort of interested and want to learn a little bit more about this, check out the free information that I'll send to you via email and on Telegram. And then if you want to actually just get straight in and just see what this stuff is like, join in the group. And then in there you can learn about coaching, learn about how we work with everything. There's also a page up there that will talk to you about if you want to work as someone running your like doing video editing for you and stuff like this. But remember, that is a premium thing that is going to cost real money, so please do not look into that one unless you've got a brand up and running already that's doing quite well. So here's me ranting about everything. I hope you enjoyed. Lots of different stuff going on. Go over to the website, check all that stuff out. Go now. Go. I was speaking about Zarathustra for an hour and a half just so I could get you to this point and force you to go over there and check out all the products and all that type of stuff. So check that stuff out. Loads of stuff going on in there. Thank you very much for your time. Stay juicy, and we'll see Thus Spoke Zarathustra very soon.